As my fate was handed to me, I never expected it to lead me here, being given the chance to experience in a shared journey which brought two people together. I now attempt to give a short description of this unique travel. It was everywhere and nowhere. It was a time of no time. Love didn't exist in the world, not to mention color. Out of the sky I came, always trying to get someplace that I wasn't exactly sure was there. The last time I was flying, I fell asleep at the guide bar. Sometimes when I'm sitting alone, I think I'm sleeping with my eyes open, and I can't wake up. Grounded. I didn't trust the ground. You can't trust. Always have something to fall back on. This land consists of nothing more than alleyways and tall chimneys of brick that spew out black smoke, which blocks out the sun more and more every day. Some place that looked the same as the rest of the world. Nowhere. While I slept, the rusty flying tarp descended me safely. Its tattered wings gave off a rubbery smell as they burned from the sparks of the engine. But I wasn't hurt. Small miracle, I wondered. Now I realize how wrong I was. Big fate. Time didn't change much for a place that didn't have it. The sun sat frozen in the sky as usual. 40-watt bulb. So-called time was in its bleakest state of existence, a place in which nothing was enjoyable. Life itself was unendurable. It could not actually be lived. People who lived there, in a mass subconscious hallucination, brought the past, the future, and the fictitious into the present moment. We felt that there was more to life than we knew. Little did anyone know that it was love. How are we supposed to know? I told you love didn't exist in the world, or color. I'd forgotten how much I hated walking. Sighs of relief left my lips because I didn't see any people. I hated people. They made me sick, literally. I would get nauseous in crowds. I just wanted to be left alone. So I ran away. I'm still gone. Running away sometimes works for the better, sometimes. Sometimes you find yourself. I never wanted anything other than myself. I'd recognize myself anywhere because people don't change, situations do. I knew mine was going to change. I could smell it in the wind. I was either going to run into myself or kill myself like any other person would, living in non-existence. These two choices were far more than I thought I deserved. I kept on walking. Coincidentally, I found the truck I was born in. I'd remember it anywhere, even though it happened far away. I always hated my birth. I have a good memory for painful things. Loneliness. It started to set in. I welcomed it, grasping for any kind of emotion. It whispered in my ear and we went to sleep. Leber is a thin boy who lives in this black and gray world. His eyes are clean and his face cold with pain. How many times has he been in this alley, other alleys, in the same situation? Too many. This time he decides he won't fight back against his assailants. Leber isn't questioning the sky's speed to himself, but the why. I dreamt about a girl, instigating a fight. Figures it wasn't a dream. No one's dreamt in years. I was still there. I miss the sky more than ever. He feels the blows of hostile feet and the laughter of a girl cheering them on. She cries over the thudding of fists against a brittle rib cage. Leber was sinking into unconsciousness when he felt it. A looker onto this whole thing. Me. They hit him one last time and searched his pockets. All he could see and hear was the clouds rushing overhead and the skating footsteps leaving. It made me want to share something I had in me with someone else. Inside my walls. A girlish laughter that had a devilish tone to it echoed off the walls of the alley. Leber's eyes were closed as she dropped her pants. There was a faint smile on the lips on her face and a wet smile between her legs. A drop of vaginal juice dripped onto Leber's lips. His mind shot back to being born. The presence that he felt earlier was another young girl down the alley, watching this whole scene. Me, Europa. I smelled boy, helpless boy. Her lips were pursed and her eyes fluttering, I imagine. I walked towards the face-mounting girl with a heavy pipe. I watched my mother get honey this way. Steal it from men. But I was sure this boy didn't have any in him. I was hoping the girl had some on her, from previous engagements. And if she did, I hoped also she had a clean needle to shoot it up. I wasn't hooked on honey, but I enjoyed the kick every now and then. Feeling the situation a little weird, I tried to hold back my laughter because everybody knows you don't get honey from noses. I know now what she was doing. She didn't have any honey on her, though. I'm not sure what she had on her. I was just getting into the loneliness. Just another person in the world, and I helped him. I wasn't raised to do that kind of stuff, helping flies out of spider webs. I'm sure I wasn't. You could say the boy owed me something, but he wasn't in any shape to do anything about it. He didn't even thank me. I didn't want him to talk anyway. Meeting him like this, I smile thinking how we met. Why this alley? Now I know I should have said something to this boy. I'm one of those people that realize what they should have said earlier to somebody while they're falling asleep. People that like to hold on to their normal feelings. The ones we see so clearly. So a steady flow of nothingness ran through my brain. I felt his cold arms through his coat, and his breath smelled like old dried pigeon droppings. I think this boy had a destination. I helped him still. He felt something in his heart. What's a heart? At the time, he honestly didn't know. At the time, we passed many gray walls, weeping ice-cold tears. I longed to fly again. All I touched and all I saw, the weightlessness. You don't need bridges if you're weightless. I'm not anymore. I grew up thinking in the back of my mind that I would need a bridge to bring two worlds together. But underneath the bridges, a deadly current of remorse flowed to the heart of this black and gray world we lived in. If it ran dry, people would still try and drown themselves in it, but end up stuck in the mud for all time. But we didn't know what time was then. It didn't exist. Just the beats of hearts. Senseless thudding, keeping in time with the outside world. The heart never saw unless your chest was split open. Let it lay buried deep within those who still live there. It makes it easier, I know. We live there. But the choices we took all added up the same for everybody. To escape. But to where? No one really knew what world existed outside of the one we lived in. Just the sky and the ground seemed to exist. It's all I could see. Behind the face sits another face. And behind that one, a distant feeling staring into space with eyes as black as coal. If you tore off these faces and let the shell of your existence be shown, that world would eat you alive, whole. That's one thing you could count on about that world. It would kill you for the first chance it got. I asked him what time it was. He pulled out a watch without a face. All of its years are showing. Good, my favorite show was on. Do I have a name, he asked. Yes. Here it's called Europa. His was Leber. He'd seen this one 1,000 times. I got caught up in my favorite show. The way I am now is different. At the time, I believed that if you saw a way out, don't wait for me. Don't do me any favors. I wouldn't wait for you. What goes around comes around. I wish he'd get better soon. I was moved nevertheless, even seeing things through a murky river shit. We look through a murky river of shit. The universe isn't real. If it weren't for our perception, it wouldn't be here. Outside of our perception, it doesn't exist. Time and space, unknown phenomenon. I was careful following him once he could walk on his own. Careful of ambushes. I kept my eyes on his heels. I wanted to go where he was going. I didn't know. My ignorance would be evil if I left and didn't find out. My would-be evil turned out to be innocence. Time conquers ignorance. It should. But is innocence good? We have the capacity to choose between good and evil, a freedom of will. If in the course of our lives we make some choices, with even a hint of goodwill, and this helps us conquer elements of evil within us, then we've lived for a reason, a purpose. But if we continue to lose, always give in to evil, then we really are lost. Most of us don't know why we're alive. To make choices. Believing that we're born to be happy makes life pretty impossible because then we're just thinking about how unhappy we are. Who the fuck said that we live life to be happy? Much more is required of us. Much more things than being happy. I'm not saying that when we take the side of good and defeat evil, we don't enjoy the pleasure of happiness. Great joy can come from that. But now we're talking about a different happiness, not just pleasure of life. We have to share the same dream in order to get out of here. Something's watching us. It's not the big things we're being tested about. It's the very small matters. It's situations so small that we don't even sense that there's a moral element involved. The big situations we know we're being tested. We feel it. The test is when you're not even aware there's a moral element involved. Leber knew 2 trains that left that place. He'd never been out, but he knew of 2 trains. I stayed. One of us is crazy. Leber got used to me following him. I was mumbling to myself when he found his house. I never got a chance to talk to the girl that knocked me over. Her name was Aram. She lived with Koki, Leber's friend. Clokey and Aram felt something for each other that they couldn't even put into words, or anything else. My mother once said, "There's a way out of this life." I wonder if she ever found it herself. I really wouldn't know too much about life if it weren't for her. At least at such an early age. I guess she could contact me when she's ready. I'll see her again. She already decided to leave, but she didn't know where she was going. Clokey carried something with him for a long time. For as long as he could remember, he believed it belonged to Aram, but he never bothered to tell her about it. Telling her wouldn't have made a difference. You'd think after leaving people with their crumbling hearts in their hands a bunch of times, it would get easier for you. It gets harder because you're worried it's the last person alive, and you lose the opportunity to have someone close to you again. It makes sense. Something's watching us and it pays us back. I was trying to find Leber in this building. His home. This is where we're from. A shell of a hospital for mentally disturbed. Our ancestors all come from insane asylums. The hospitals became too full. Patients flooding into the hallways onto the streets. They became the world. Their populace outnumbering the outside world. I guess Leber was still grasping onto that. That secure time when you thought people were looking out for your best mental interest. Security of somebody helping you. He was only a kiss away. At the time, I thought was a kiss. There's a point when you say it's impossible for two people to know each other the same way. We give and can still be content. I can sleep for days sometimes. That's all there are. Endless days. My tattered pocket still carried white marbles. There are certain parts of our brain we never use. When we take certain things, they open up sections of the brain we're not used to seeing out of. We see things in an abnormal point of view. It's real to the person it's happening to. We only use so much of our brains and our hearts. That's another story. Clokey left. I felt Leber's heartbeat from across the room. I can't answer. We went. We went. We went. We went. The worst part about dreaming for me is that I can't tell the difference between a waking state, but the vividness of it, the contrast of that one told me it was for real. My heart still beat. There's a place where the flimsy heart beats strong. Pieces of it still rush through my brain. Was Leber still there? Where? Was it a room he showed me? I can't remember where it is. Or did I show him a room inside this place he didn't know he had? A place where you didn't feel watched. I'm on this planet and I still feel like I'm falling. And I'm hungry. That means you get a handful of dust and concentrate. And from the dust forms bone, then flesh. You're not hungry anymore. What you don't want to do is be in the presence of someone's concentration forming flesh. It could mess you up. Even turn the bone to stone. Even turn the bone to stone. even turned the bone to stone. To be unloved and miserable. Aram didn't have anywhere to go. No wonder she didn't tell Clokey where she was going. Clokey would have followed her. I also don't believe she knew where she was going. No one does. I don't remember when I first believed this verse, but it feels like it's been with me for a long time. Pinpointing where and when you picked up certain beliefs is hard because you might have been born with them. Where the fuck were you, Clokey asked. Burying Aram in salt would keep her from coming back in the flesh when Clokey tried to concentrate to eat. It happened all the time. Someone close to you dies, and you're thinking of them, and the next thing you know, you're munching on the flesh of a close friend that's died. I think we're lost, Clokey offered. He asked himself what was on his face. I told him he was crying. I told Cookie I used to be the same as everyone else. I think so was I, he said. Leber came to me and said that we were living in some other world than what we see. I think I knew exactly what that other world was. It happened to do with those marbles, and we both believed Clokey knew what they were. Coming events, people cast their shadows before them. Look, I don't know what you guys ate, Clokey said. All right. Okay. Let me get a focus on my wandering attention. Practicing the presence of God. Pleasure in the pathless woods. Islands of sanity. If this is what we're gonna do with ourselves, we might as well be dead. You're right. She's right, Clokey said. I couldn't really concentrate, so I settled for what I could get. The bone doesn't taste so bad. We understood how Clokey was feeling, but Leber knew he was still hiding something from us. Clokey wouldn't answer. The three of us sat on an old ragged couch covered with bird shit. Clokey missed the footsteps of his family when they walked through the country treehouse on summer nights. I asked Clokey if his parents had any children that lived. Not this side of the casket, he said. What's wrong with us? Me. I asked them. Clokey spoke and said, I don't know why Aram left me. When you're with someone for such a long time, your heart starts to beat the same. You become one being. Before we met, we each had a cloud over our heads. When we finally did meet, our clouds collided. There was a storm. After every storm, there's a quiet stillness. When we lose something unreplaceable, it's like we're coming out of a dream. A stabbing pain of sadness jumped and mugged my heart. Whenever I've been in despair, it seems like I've reached the edge of the world. My insides push me to the edge. The only thing left for me to do is to give in to my final desire, only to fall from this edge of life into the void of death. I'm always running into despair. It follows me, a suicidal impulse. The pain can't go on forever. Only the desire to unburden myself, to give up the ghost. Sometimes I end up thinking like a cloud, except for the parachute which flows behind me in the dirty wind. The incredible experience I shared with Leber, though, something which I never expected to happen, has. Leber told me Clokey was never coming back and that he might have known what it was we ate, those marbles. We were aware of the reality of the episode because we saw it in each other's eyes. But we had something within us stronger than reality, and that was faith in the meaning and necessity of our action, to find more marbles. You have a body and you have a consciousness. Our consciousness was expanding and developing. Our bodies needed this stuff too. Leber said he thought he might know where to start looking. An old friend who lived at the bottom of a pool. Things were drying up for this guy, apparently. Leber says he was always experimenting with mind-altering things. I can't imagine what Leber was afraid of. I know he's seen dead bodies before. Leber said the last time he came here, his friend had squirted some silvery gray liquid out of his nose and claimed that upon ingesting it, you could breathe underwater. Sounds odd, but I'd figure it wasn't worth catching some new mental disease by touching this guy. Sometimes somebody else's fear of something can see through their skin and penetrate yours. Leber was scared. I was penetrated. I think that's the first time I had ever held anybody's hand. It made it seem as if it wasn't a failure if we didn't find what we were looking for, because there was the two of us. It could have been anything. A piece of chipped glass. A shock to my body after expecting the stuff that had transported us, body and all, out of this hell. Desperation in one's life was almost the thing that killed everybody here. The girl on a bike must have killed 2 birds with a stone when she decided to try and sell us some glass marbles. She saw us coming from a mile away. We never thought about what we would do if we actually came across somebody with marbles. This girl wanted us to give her a radio tube for a handful. Her new baby never has heard a radio. I knew Lever had a hard tube-like thing in his pocket, but I don't think a radio would pick up too much from it. We took advantage of a woman who knew what we wanted, and explained to her that we weren't interested in any new ideas about bartering. I should have known that we would have to go through much more to get to where we wanted to be. Death never crossed my mind once. It crossed my mind then. I couldn't feel any wind blowing. Lever's voice got farther and further away. The motherfucker shouts and the I'll kill you screams were the last thing heard. Many miles away. I didn't expect Lever to return, but I waited for him anyway. I asked him where he'd been, but he only wanted to know if he was gone long. Leaving me for stray dogs wasn't in him. He came back for me because he couldn't imagine what he couldn't imagine. It's a crazy hope, he said, but a sainted despair wouldn't help us in the least bit. Lever said that it was the hardest thing to explain. He didn't know what he was talking about because he was trying to explain how love felt. He couldn't because love didn't exist in that world, or the colors. Lever showed me a bag of white marbles, and yes, they were the real ones. I knew they were. I could smell flowers in the wind. Clokey had a theory that the reason we came back so soon after eating the marbles is because we only ate one each. If we ate handfuls of them, we could blow a fuse somehow and stay there forever. His theory was proved to be true. We were going to a place that accepted us whole, the way we are, spirit and body. Lever said he would whisper the end to me, but he never got a chance. I didn't notice the arrow plunged in Lever's back. Neither did he. We walked with our wet shadows towards a trapped horizon.